So Duncan Trussell put out a video recently where he's kind of talking a little bit about the elephant graveyard situation, and I need to refresh myself because I don't really remember what Elephant Graveyard said about Duncan Trussell. But we're going to quickly watch a little bit of Elephant Graveyard and get a refresh on what exactly happened.
Greetings to you, my friends.
It's here he is.
D. Trussell.
Take this guy, Duncan Trussell, for example.
Take
one
this
of
guy.
Joe's longtime friends.
Yep.
And a former advocate of radical honesty, truth-seeking, and psychedelic wisdom. Not long ago, he was the lone voice of reason in Joe's inner circle.
Indeed he was.
And the only guy to openly predict how Joe would be corrupted by powerful forces.
Yes, he
to
did.
exploit him for access to his far-reaching media platform.
People have decided you're one of the magnifying glasses focusing this beam of attention into the world. You have to watch out because people are gonna try to exploit you. That's the main thing, is people recognizing what you are, who have political agendas, will infiltrate your shit and then start blowing out their radioactivity into the world. And you have to wrestle with your identity. I worry about you, man.
He was well aware of these billion...
You know that comment, right, that he made to Joe? I think personally, Joe doesn't like that kind of thing. Because I think Joe has it in his mind that if you call him out publicly on his podcast, or if you kind of say something, you know, that's somewhat critical of Joe, he has a feeling that if you're his friend, it's almost a form of you throwing him under the bus or kind of adding to the pylon, because he feels like if you say that, it kind of legitimizes what people say on the outside, and they're then going to use you as a reason to keep going at him. I think so, because I don't remember Duncan Trussell ever saying this again. That was the one and only time he said that to Rogan. He's never really brought it up again. So I wonder if maybe Rogan told him, hey, relax with the, you know what I mean? Relax with this. Relax, you know, tell me this in private, but don't do it on air, because people are going to get crazy and they're going to start, you know, sending you messages and going fucking nuts. I wonder.
Billionaire techno wizard freaks out there manipulating new media before it became too obvious to deny. He warned Joe about them being a danger over and over again.
We established they're these billionaires, and they live in these compounds.
Right.
And certainly people like Michael Hastings and other people, they get killed all the time. There's super powerful people who will use technology to kill people to have their own way. So that means that there is some group or series of groups of people that are doing high.
When I say outside, big up PP Yummy, I mean like outside of Joe Rogan's inner circle. I feel like Joe Rogan's the type of person who doesn't really listen to anybody outside of his inner circle. If you're not in his inner circle, what you have to say doesn't hold any weight, doesn't hold any merit, and he doesn't really respect it. I don't think so. I think he kind of looks down on his commentators. He kind of looks down on his critics. He looks down on even his viewers. I don't think he really does respect or rate their opinion whatsoever, which is why he doesn't read comments. Because me personally, I feel the act of not reading comments is almost like you putting a middle finger up to your viewers and fans, you know? I get not reading every single comment, but not reading any. Not having a slight idea, a slight grip on of your own, of what's going on out there, what people think of you, especially your fans, or you know, their opinions and stuff, is a little bit arrogant. It's a little bit weird in my personal opinion. But that's how Rogan acts, I think, personally.
Really nefarious actions from places of power. We know that there is truly a war to control the paradigm.
He was by all accounts an honest guy, and probably the only guy on that stupid podcast who would rather say what's true than just whatever the burgeoning comedy emperor wanted.
Yo, big up Gamebred. I bet he reads comments. I don't think he does, brother. I think Joe's so rattled now, I think we'd know it. We'd know and we'd hear it if he reads comments. I don't think he does. I don't think he actually does. I think what he says is true. Most likely young Jamie relays back whatever he needs to hear. Like if people are saying a lot of things, you know, and they're really getting back at him, he'll kind of be aware of that. So in a way, he's sort of reading comments because young Jamie reads them and then relays them back to him. But I don't think he sits there on his phone scrolling the comments. I don't think so. I think if he did, we'd know, because he'd react to it. He'd say something inadvertently in a rant. But I don't think he reads them. I think he purposely tries to ignore them so he can just keep, you know, saying what he wants to say. It's a very one-way relationship, to be honest. To be fair, I think he stopped reading comments ever since he shut down the Joe Rogan forums back in the day. He had the Joe Rogan forums on his site that was, you know, it was kind of like an early 4chan back in the day, full of a lot of conspiracies, but it was quite fun. I used to check it from time to time, and Joe shut it down because he didn't like the conversations that were being had there, conversations about him, other people. You know, he kind of felt like it was getting a bit crazy, so he shut that down. So I think ever since he shut that down, I think his social media usage is mostly one way. He just posts stuff, you know. He doesn't really engage. He doesn't really do whatever. What normal people do on social media. He's not liking comments. He's not pinning comments. He's not replying to things. He just posts, and that's it. I think so. I think if he read comments, honestly, I think we'd know. I think it'd be way more obvious.
To hear. But those sorts of qualities are no longer welcome in the comedy czar's simulacrum. They're far too threatening.
Big up Mr. Steel Girl. Big up Mr. Steel Girl. Big up Mr. Steel Girl.
He's compromised.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Just a tiny bit. Just a tiny bit. Big up Mr. Steel Girl.
So once Joe migrated into his new reality, Duncan faced the hard choice of either embracing the absurd and maintaining his principles of honesty and truth, or committing a philosophical suey and joining Joe in his new reality in order to maintain connection to the comedy czar's.
By the way, when he says philosophical suey, what does that mean? Philosophical. First, we must define the notion of philosophical. No, that's what it means. It's a non-TOS way. It's a TOS way of saying that word, essentially. When I hear suey, I think of this. That's what I think of. That's what I think when I think of suey. I guess I got it completely wrong. That's what I think of when I think of suey.
Sphere of influence. Oh, Tipahan.
Whatever's happening, you just have to make it a good thing. Anything that's happening to you can be converted into something either that's going to make you scared, self-destructive, rationalize your anger, rationalize your shitty decisions, or it can be used as a thing that completely converts you. Like at any given moment, you can shed your operating system. You could drop all of the hangups, all the weird shit at any moment connected to the great truth, the divine.
That was him 5 years ago. He's since followed through on this new guy conversion, so let's see how connected he is to that great truth. Ooh,
oh no,
Let me ask you this, so what do you think about people who say that someone like Peter Thiel is the Antichrist?
Here's what's fascinating to me about accusing Peter Thiel of being the Antichrist.
Now, Peter Thiel, in case you didn't know this in advance, is one of the primary billionaire techno-wizards we mentioned earlier. With his immense wealth, Thiel wields massive influence in politics, media, and online information from behind the scenes. He says cool stuff like freedom and democracy are actually not compatible. Pete's company, Palantir, is deeply embedded with the CIA, ICE, FBI, NSA, police, and the military-industrial complex, and promises to be the most powerful mass surveillance platform to ever exist. He subscribes to a philosophy that believes that civilization as we know it ought to be destroyed, and from its ashes...
We got PP Yummy. He don't want to read the comments, Bradley. He just want to keep doing his thing. I immediately heard Brendan's voice. Big up PP Yummy. I immediately heard Brendan's voice. Bradley. We don't read the comments. Which one to keep doing our thing? Bradley. He was so nervous, innit? He was so shook. He was so worried.
A new technocracy should arise, a new state run by a CEO king who wields absolute authority. Pete is part of this new military tech industrial complex, operating with little oversight while creating autonomous weapons and surveillance systems, and whose algorithms remain a complete mystery. He's a caricature of a villain, straight out of a comic book. But Pete is real, and the exact kind of nefarious, influential guy that Duncan used to warn everybody about just a few years ago. All right, back to Duncan. What's he saying about Pete?
Here's what's fascinating to me about accusing Peter Thiel of being the Antichrist.
Stuff. He's very much
talking awesome. And it was like totally normal dude, obviously super smart. There didn't feel like there was any kind of like subversive anything, nothing to really...
I forgot he mentioned that. He mentioned he went to go and see Peter Thiel talk. You know what? He's heavily compromising, isn't it? Jesus Christ. I went to go see him talk. There's nothing wrong with him, man. He's actually kind of a cool guy, actually. Like, what?
Be scared of.
Depressing,
so people
man.
say that Peter Thiel is Antichrist, just for argument's sake.
Fucking says that.
You hear that? He's actually getting mad about this.
Argument's sake.
Fucking says that.
The reason Dunk's got to do this is because the comedy czar is actually Pete's friend now. So he had to become a new guy to stay in Joe's circle of power, a shriveled
That's the really sad bit about Rogan, because over the years, that's something you've realized about him. He's very intolerant. Before, one of the main things I used to like about Rogan, apart from his curiosity, right, this like childlike curiosity that he had still as an adult, was the fact that he was quite tolerant. He had his own opinions. If you opposed it, then he didn't mind. Like back in the day, if you were anti-weed or anti-marijuana, he'd defend his points vigorously, that he loved marijuana and its benefits, but you didn't feel like he would cut off his friends if they were anti-weed. But nowadays, I feel like if you do say you're anti-fucking weed, anti-marijuana, he would definitely not talk to you again, you know? Nowadays, if you probably say you're not a big fan of Elon, like if you imagine if he's got friends that are very critical of Elon Musk, I'm pretty sure that would put a strain in their relationship, because Rogan really thinks a lot of Elon. So that's the one bit that's kind of the most disappointing about the Rogan we have now. He's not very tolerant, you know. He's not very accepting of other people, of different points of view. He just has on people that kind of repeat what he wants to say, you know, kind of pat him on the back, suck his dick, echo chamber type shit. You know, it's really fucking sad, that part, because the Rogan for lack of a better term, and not to sound fucking gay, but the Rogan that I fell in love with was a guy that was super curious and open to loads of different things, you know, open to people's different opinions, different sort of perspectives, different ideas, everything on that kind of a, you know, and then obviously presenting on his show. Now it's all gone. It's all fucking gone.
husk of a guy, being fed by the demonic umbilical cord attached to the bowels of the comedy czar, from which he can never disengage. He's cooked, finished, and God, look at him, he's just not the same guy. Look in his eyes, it's obvious. Those are suey eyes. Well, that's a confirmed suey for Duncan. Rest in peace, man. Quel dommage. Well, once you've entered the comedy czar's comedy cult simulacrum, you're expected to do your part to uphold the pillars of this new reality. Upholding the pillars allows you to stay in the cult and potentially reap the rewards that come from its membership. These tenets bind the simulacrum together, and as we already explained, the more guys you've got upholding the pillars, the more stable the new reality becomes, which is vital because if the simulation crumbles, it's all over for this stupid experiment. All cults need their tenets, and the Austin comedy toilet cult, or whatever we're calling it, is no different.
So I think that's that's most of the Duncan Trussell situation, right? So that's where Elephant Graveyard called out Duncan Trussell for his turn, called out Duncan Trussell for not being the same guy, called out Duncan Trussell for essentially, becoming one of Joe Rogan's sycophants instead of the voice of reason, right? Before, Duncan Trussell occupied rare air space like Ari Shafir, maybe even Shane Gillis and Mark Norman, people who kind of had different points of view, different opinion, and were willing to kind of, push back on Rogan when it comes to sharing them and shit. And it felt like he appreciated it. It did feel like Rogan appreciated having a friend like Duncan Trussell and his group of friends who was able, and I also feel like sometimes you brought Duncan Trussell on specifically for that point, like he's the voice of the viewers, of the commentators who probably feel like I've gone too far. Let me bring this guy in to kind of reel me back in. But over time, something happened and Rogan stopped really listening, stopped really caring for that sort of side of things, and maybe made it very clear to Duncan Trussell that, hey, it's my way or the highway. And for whatever reason, Duncan Trussell has acquiesced. So let's hear his reply. Duncan Trussell did reply regarding all this situation, and let's hear it. So this is the latest episode of the Duncan Trussell, Duncan Trussell Family Hour, episode number 710. Somebody did put some timestamps down below, so big up the person who shared the timestamps. I think it might be an AI thing. Yeah, there's some AI timestamps down here. So let's see. Let's go to this bit here. Let's go to this bit. Thoughts on Peter Thiel, because that's going to be that's going to be probably the start of him replying back to Elephant and Graveyard. Thoughts on Peter Thiel.
And so, in this clip that they used, I say I don't think Peter Thiel's the Antichrist, and I don't think Peter Thiel's the Antichrist. I also said, so I'll just summarize what's in that clip. I said,
old Duncan Trussell would have definitely thought Peter Thiel was Antichrist.
I went to that talk because I'd heard Peter Thiel was evil, and I wanted to see that. I think I heard he was Darth Vader. I wondered if the temperature in the room would drop a few degrees. And, I'm a very curious person. And so if there's a chance for me to be like directly in the presence of somebody who is has been labeled as like a very evil person. I want to see that. Like, what's going on there? What are they like before the show starts? How do they talk to people? What's going on there? And in this video, I said what is my direct observation of the experience.
He even looks really shifty, innit? Not that I don't believe him, but just by his eyes and his demeanor, how he's moving his arms around. What's that phrase for it? What's it called? Gesticulation, right? Whatever he's doing right there. He just looks a little bit nervous. He looks like he's not convincing himself. He looks like he's fidgeting, you know? I don't believe him. I just don't believe him. And I also feel like he knows how convenient it must appear. Rogan's a big fan of Peter Thiel, and then you go and see Peter Thiel talk, and you say you go there with this curiosity that you want to see if he really is evil, and you go there and you somehow get convinced that he's not. Seems convenient, isn't it? Because Rogan's a big fan of him, now all of a sudden you're a big fan. Seems oddly convenient. By the way, what is that phrase I'm looking for?
Gesticulate.
Gesticulate. Use gestures, especially dramatic ones, instead of talking to emphasize one's words. Yes, I think he's gesticulate lying. Let's see. Is that a thing? Is that a thing? Gesticulating while lying can manifest in overly expressive and excessive hand and arm movements, possible attempt to compensate for a lack of sincerity or to overemphasize the lie. But this is not a definite sign of deceit and could also just be a person's usual behavior. Liars also show a lack of gestures or a closed-off posture, and other common signs like fidgeting, touching the face, or unusual head movements can appear. Observing a consistent deviation from the person's normal behavior is more reliable than relying on single gestures, as people have a unique signature. So yeah, that's what I think is going on right there.
Watching this, he didn't seem evil, and he seems smart, really smart, and I feel like I have like fundamental theological differences when it comes to his interpretation of the book of Revelations. Now, because I said
that's great. You have one pushback against Peter Thiel, and that's his interpretation of the Holy Bible. Thanks.
That, and because this landed on this video, which in a broader sense, and I think a sort of satirical way, seems to be saying that I am part of a cabal of Austin comedians who are fascists, who are maybe trying to take over the federal government. And I think
no, it's calling you out for being somebody that once was the voice of reason within Joe Rogan's inner circle, and now you have just joined in the chorus of sycophants. You are now part of the fucking chorus of cheerleaders. You know what I mean? That's what it's calling out. Because one of the great things about listening to Duncan Trussell on Rogan was that it was one of the rare times where you got to hear Rogan being pushed back, Rogan being challenged, you know, Rogan being questioned about some of the beliefs he's been holding, about some of the turns he's been making, opinions over whatever. It was just interesting. Plus, he's just a good guest and they have a good chemistry. They're obviously close friends. But now he's just become one of those guys that just kind of, you know, sucks off Rogan like a Brendan Schaub type of person. It's just not as interesting anymore. And also, Duncan Trussell's obvious kind of move into the center, slightly to the right, has also been disappointing because, you know, you never even thought of him being overly political, really. And now he's clearly, you know, maybe from just a purely, you know, interest, philosophy, whatever, belief sort of system thing, you see him aligning more with Rogan's political point of view as opposed to how he was before. That's what the documentary, I think, or that segment was highlighting. I think it was less about him being a part of a cabal that's trying to bring down society, and more so people, you know, Elephant Graver just saying in his own words, he's disappointed that the Duncan Trussell that he liked is no more.
I think from my clip, the anonymous person said that, implied or said directly that, like,
yo, big up Pity. Watch them back. He's always been terrible. What do you mean, Duncan Trussell on Joe Rogan? No, I think he was good, man. I think he was good. I think he was a breath of fresh air in the past. But then, to be fair, Rogan was also less like he is now. You know, Rogan was also not so co-opted by the far right as he is now. But Duncan back then was really, he was a real breath of fresh air when he used to appear on Rogan, especially when they had a bad, you know, like a shitty run of guests. Having Duncan on was like, hallelujah. Now, not so much.
Can't say things that go against what Rogan thinks and like that I'm getting paid off by Peter Thiel or Palantir, which is not true at all.
Can you at least admit, though, you're not pushing back and you're not the same as you were when it comes to Rogan? Can you at least admit that? Is there going to be any acknowledgement that you are not as combative or disagreeable when it comes to Rogan as you were in the past? Can you just admit that?
At all. None of that's true. None of it's real. None of it's true. The idea that I'm censoring myself for fear of upsetting one of my best friends is just batshit.
One of your best friends also happens to be one of the most important people in media or in podcasting. Also was having one of the biggest platforms ever. That's also probably significantly helped your career. Of course, you're going to be... The fact that he's acting like it's not going to be in the back of your head is dumb. You're insulting everyone's intelligence. Of course it's going to be in the back of your head if you say certain things you might not appear on the show again. Let's be fair. Let's be honest. Let's be grown-ups.
Idea that maybe I have to run things by Rogan before I say them, batshit.
No one said that.
The idea that a technocrat oligarch is interested in infiltrating the podcast of a mid-level...
Oh, no. Come on. Don't do this now. The Duncan Trussell, he's trying to dismiss any type of conspiracy theory that may relate to Peter Thiel's interest within the podcasting space or within the commentary space in general. Come on, brother. Come on, bro.
Podcaster to disseminate ideas is batshit.
No, it's actually a really good idea. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't that be a good idea? Why would that be a batshit idea? That'd be a great way to actually reach people, to actually influence things by having people like you, especially someone like a Duncan Trussell, who a lot of people thought was the voice of reason within Joe Rogan's inner circle. If he's now espousing or repeating the same talking points that Joe Rogan is, people are going to start thinking, oh shit, this is the way to go, because a person that I used to rate is now on that path. Maybe they know something I don't.
And I thought it was hilarious. I really did. When people started sending me DMs and stuff, the whole suey eyes, I've got suicidal eyes. When those things started coming in,
I wouldn't say you got suey eyes. I'd just say you're dead behind the eyes. That's what I would say. My interpretation wouldn't be he's got suey eyes. I feel like he's dead behind the eyes. I feel like whatever spark he used to have is gone. Maybe it's because of his marriage, because of his child. He's a grown up now. He's got big boy responsibilities, you know. He's no longer the guy that's, living his quasi hippie life. He's still probably living it, but the way he was living before, isn't the same anymore. He's a grown up with responsibilities, with a house. So I'm assuming that changes things, but the sparkle and whatever has gone from his eyes. That's for sure. He kind of looks dead behind. Maybe he's medicated. I don't know. But he does look dead behind the eyes. Less so suey, more dead behind the eyes.
I legitimately thought it was funny. Creepy, but funny. And the reason I thought it was funny was because, my God, I was trying to imagine what that looks like.
Exactly, Ghostface. Ghostface is 94. No, Ghostface is 594. He's saying the exact opposite of what he said on Rogan. He said people will take advantage of Joe, LOL, and now he's saying that it's ridiculous. Exactly. It's ridiculous anyone would want to take advantage of Joe. It's ridiculous anyone would want to take advantage of Duncan Trussell and try to exploit his audience. That's impossible. Why would anyone want to do that? Then why did you say that? Big up Mr. Studio Girl. Them night shift warehouse fellas need a voice of reason. Exactly.
Getting checks from Palantir, getting checks from Peter Thiel. I was trying to imagine a scenario.
Big up Micah Mills. Big up Micah Mills. Appreciate you.
We're in some serious phone call with Rogan. I'm like, Joe, I just wanted to say some things about Peter Thiel on my podcast. Just want to run it by you to make sure it's okay. Like, if I did that, like, if I actually did that, I bet we probably wouldn't talk for like a month. He would be so weirded out by me. And so looking at...
That's oddly specific. Did Joe ever not speak to you for a month before? Because you tried to run something by him before? Or tried to ask him something in private? Also, I don't think anyone said that you run things by Joe. That was more so a joke. Maybe that was a joke or something, but I don't remember Elephant Graveyard saying you run things by Joe. I think it was more so a sense of it feels like you just repeat what Joe says in your own words. Still hasn't dismissed that, by the way, or addressed that.
Something fundamentally incorrect, fundamentally wrong on every level. Which, by the way, if you've listened to my podcast for any amount of time, you should know that. If you've listened to my podcast for any amount of time, you know my feeling when it comes to war. You know what I've said on Rogan's podcast, this podcast. I've said it over and over again and weirdly gotten in trouble for that too. It's always bad, always wrong, always horrifying, terrible, bad, terrible, terrible. And me making a direct and honest observation about an experience that I had and then taking that direct.
Saying the word honest as well is a bit of a red flag for me. Direct and honest observation. Honest. Who are you trying to convince here?
Direct and honest observation. And spinning that in some way I've been compromised by the oligarchs, that I'm a bootlicker, fascist, Nazi, is bat shit crazy.
I definitely think you're a bootlicker. I wouldn't say you're a fascist or a Nazi, but I definitely think you're a bootlicker.
It just is. Now, again, all of this was very funny until a few days ago, Charlie Kirk got assassinated. And then it's...
Oh, come on, bro. Come on. Come on. Now he's going to be so, I'm afraid for my family's safety. Fuck off, bro. This happened way before Charlie Kirk got assassinated. Look at this. Clutching at straws. Look at this. This is pretty disgusting. I'm not going to lie. Now he's going to try and use the death of Charlie Kirk to somehow absolve him from having to address some of the, I think, warranted pushback and criticism he's been getting for his about turn recently. Now death of Charlie Kirk has made all those things null and mute because trolls are in my DMs threatening the lives of me and my family. Come on, bro. Come on. Elephant Red Graveyard video dropped way before fucking Charlie Kirk died. Dropped way before that. Come on. People have been questioning or asking you to, people have been wondering why you changed and why he's acting as if he doesn't see what he sees on his Reddit. He's on his Reddit. He posts on there all the time. He's acting like he doesn't see the conversation around him on the Reddit where people are just saying, what's happened to fucking Duncan Trussell? Why has he changed? Why is he not the same person that he was before? Why does it feel like he's turning into Rogan? Why does it feel like he's agreeing way more with what Rogan has to say as opposed to the past? What's going on right now? Address that. Answer that question. It's not that deep. Instead of trying to make everyone out to be, I don't know, trolls and haters. And now what? Oh, the death of Charlie Kirk is what affected me. That's come on, man.
Stopped being funny and became just fucking creepy. And here's why. On top of those of you who have been harassing me through my DMs and in my comments gleefully, on top.
And what does harassing you mean, by the way? Because I want to see what this harassment means. What does it mean by harassing? Does it mean that he's receiving comments from people that are asking him to kind of answer and reply back to Elephant Graveyard, that are demanding that he has a comment to make? Is that harassing? People that are questioning why he's changed. I want to see what he means by harassing, because I feel like a lot of people who throw out this, I'm getting harassed thing, it's mostly to just absolve themselves from any type of consequences, any type of explanation, any type of reply. They're just I don't want to address it or acknowledge it or whatever, so I'm just going to say everyone out there is harassing me so I don't have to, because immediately I'm going to I'm going to use my wife and my kid as a human meat shield so that everyone kind of lays off on me. It's come on, man, come on now. Unless there is actual loads of threats, then I obviously feel sorry for him, and I don't condone that. But if it's just people questioning and or asking very vociferously why you're like this now, I don't necessarily think that's the same thing, but I could be wrong.
On top of that, many of you have chosen to start attacking my wife because she's Christian. So that's that's a real fun thing when you're living with a very pregnant person who's making the bad decision of going online and reading comments written by people happily saying things like, Duncan's wife has controlled him, is changing him. Duncan's wife is the...
Isn't that just an honest observation from their point of view, though? You said you had an honest observation when you watched when you went to Peter Thiel's fucking talk. Why can't they have an honest observation that they think your wife may have negatively influenced you? It could be false. Who knows? We don't know your wife. But your fans could, because, I'd imagine, like my fans, like my viewers, you guys watch me more than I watch myself. So you probably notice things about me that I don't notice about myself. So most likely they've noticed things about Duncan Trussell's change, and some of them maybe made a connection, maybe incorrectly so, but it's still done because of what they've seen and heard, that the wife is at fault, that the wife could be the reason why. Now, is that not a nice thing to hear as a husband, as a man? Cool. But I wouldn't say that's harassment, It's just people observing what they see online, what's been presented to them in front of their eyes. Unless it obviously steps to harassment, then it's different. But people just pointing out that there could be a connection, I don't think that's necessarily as bad as he's trying to make it seem as.
Reason that any of this stuff is happening, attacking her faith, attacking what she fully believes, and then applying some distorted reality to that. And again, this is like the swarm. It's been insane. It's been crazy, the amount of people who've been doing this. And I think I would have let it go on forever, and I would have kept making pangolin videos just because it was so funny if there wasn't just this massive act of political violence that just happened.
So So he's trying to say that the comments he's receiving, asking him to explain himself or to reply back to the elephant graveyard, are paramount or are similar to what may have happened to Charlie Kirk, or is kind of going in the direction of political violence, and he's afraid that somebody might try to do something to him because he's now changed. Nah, don't do that. Don't do that, bro. This is a form of gaslighting. This is definitely a form of gaslighting. Do not do that. Do not do that. People are questioning why you've changed. You don't need to answer, but the reason why he's answering is because the voices have become louder since that elephant graveyard documentary. A lot of people have probably noticed now, oh yeah, shit, he has changed. Because people like myself, I don't necessarily watch Duncan Trussell's own podcast that much, but I do remember him being quite a good guest on the Joe Rogan Experience. And then obviously Elephant Graveyard's video reminded me just how good of a guest he was in the past, just how interesting it was, just how different, nice it was, to just pleasant it was to listen to him on there, because you're so used to listening to one type of voice. Having somebody that sounds like him, that comes from a perspective that he does, was really good. But no more, I guess, no more.
And so then it just gets spooky. I got to go on the road, and thanks to many of you, before I go on the road, I have to like hug an upset pregnant person and try to make her understand that I'm not going to get shot. So,
this is incredibly dramatic, incredibly dramatic. People are questioning you, asking you to respond to the elephant graveyard. I think he did this himself, to be fair as well. Not gonna lie, that little troll satirical thing that he did. If you're so afraid for your life, why would you reply that way? That troll satirical kind of parody thing that he did, replying to elephant graveyard, probably pissed off a lot more people than it needed to. He either should have ignored it or just replied in a proper video, but he didn't. He took the piss, and then it came to kind of bite him in the ass a little bit.
Hopefully this response, though I doubt it'll do anything for some of you, hopefully some of you out there who have been picking up bits of information from this video or from other videos and using that to spin some kind of distorted reality, understand that, like, by participating in harassing people for saying something that you don't agree with, or even worse, for saying something that was taken out of context, not just from that podcast, but from all the podcasts I've ever done, spinning.
So everything is taken out of context. So you just can't explain your position. Everything is just taken out of context. Everyone else is wrong but you. He's sounding more and more at Rogan every day.
That into some crazy distortion that I'm compromised. that I'm getting paid, that I'm like have phone conversations with oligarchs is psycho, man.
Didn't he say, he went to Peter Thiel's show, didn't he say, oh, I wanted to see how he is before the show, how he acts with people? How do you see him before the show? Were you in a green room? Did you see him privately before the show started? So he's trying to act like him being on the phone to a quote-unquote oligarch is ridiculous. But you being at a show and shaking his hand before he went on stage isn't ridiculous.
And you should watch out. And I don't mean watch out because it's something I'm going to do. Other than this video, I hope I never have to do anything like this ever again in my life. But watch out, because this stuff is poison, man. And it's really sad to think that many of you have a genuine...
Elephant Graveyard is poison. Honestly, he didn't even do... Honestly, that wasn't even bad. That was just a really good summation, roundup of like where we're at, the state of things right now. Obviously done through like a sociological, philosophical lens. But mostly, it was a pretty good way to kind of surmise and describe something, you know, generally that we all can kind of agree with. But he's taking it way too literal. And he's also gaslighting. And he's also not addressing the main point of this whole segment, was that people are saying Duncan Trussell's changed for the worse. Can you please speak to that? Can you please maybe explain why that's happened? Do you see that you changed? Do you kind of understand why people may think that way, or feel that way, think that way? Just, do you know what I mean? Come on, brother, come on.
Interest in making the world a better place. Many of you have a legitimate, genuine desire to see a more harmonious, beautiful world. And to imagine that your brain is being hijacked and that you're being directed to attack people who, again, my theory of podcasting from the get-go has always been just say whatever's on my mind, whatever it may be. That's what I've always done.
Oh, thanks for that. Thanks for that pearl of wisdom we could have never found. We could have never fucking come across without you. Podcastings are for you to say what you feel. Thank you.
Like, I've been podcasting since, I don't know, 2012. And all I would do is just ramble, you know, which is what I still do. Like, what I guess what these solo episodes are, that used to be the opening monologue that I would do in front of the podcast. Now, the weird thing about doing this live is I can't edit it. But back in the day,
Well, record it then. Yeah, big up on Zaki. They keep using the term harassment as justification to dodge any inquiry, like Christy. No, exactly. Like, everything is harassment. There is no constructive criticism or feedback that comes back to them. Everything that doesn't agree with what you say is harassment, is trolling. Like, come on, bro. Come on. You don't have to address anything. You don't owe anybody an explanation. But if you're gonna explain, if you're gonna try to address things, address things. That's the thing. That's the thing that annoys me. More time, just don't address things and just leave it as it is. But if you're gonna go down the addressing route, address things. Don't insult our intelligence.
I would just like spend all this time trying to like come up with like a cool intro. Usually in that intro, I would say like whatever was on my mind. And back then, you know, what was on my mind is a little different than what's on my mind now. For those of you who've been with me since the beginning, some of you have, you've seen me go through testicular cancer, both of my parents dying, getting married, having kids. You've seen me go through like a lot of crazy shit. And
regular shit that all of us go through. No offense or anything, but
quite often, like I would say, like in those opening monologues, it would sound like I was giving some kind of advice, but really what I'd be doing is I would be kind of like saying things that I wanted myself to hear. And a lot of you really responded to that. You loved it, you know, like because, you know, I have like dealt with like endogenous depression, because I have had real suicide.
You guys used to like me before. What happened? Well, we're trying to tell you what happened. You're not addressing it, and you're not fucking trying to admit it. You're trying to say we're all fucking harassers and we're all trying to get you and we're all trying to hurt you and negatively and make your pregnant woman or whatever. What did he say? He could say wife, did he? He said something weird. We're trying to make your pregnant wife fucking upset. We're not. But he's wondering out loud here, you guys used to like me. What happened? Elephant Graveyard told you what happened.
It's like I've been suicidal like in the past. And have like really confronted that in my own life and had realized like how horrific unaddressed, unacknowledged depression is. I had to find a way to like communicate to the world, like, fuck, man, what am I going to do? Here's what you...
This feels very manipulative. I'm not going to lie. This feels very, very manipulative. Why are you mentioning all this stuff now? This feels very manipulative.
Do. And it was me trying to give pep talks to myself. It sounded like I was talking to you, and I was. But I was also talking to myself. The point is, zero latency is what I was always going for. I didn't want to have to think about what I was saying. I didn't want there to be any kind of filter in between whatever was going on in my head and what I was saying to you guys. Pure honesty. That's all I ever wanted to do.
You said the word honesty again. Anyone that keeps repeating that word most probably is lying, in my opinion. If you have to keep repeating and emphasizing how honest and how truthful you are, you're probably lying.
And that's what I did. And to me, one of the things that really sucks about some of these like accusations is that you're saying that I'm changing the way that what I'm saying that isn't reflecting who I really am.
No. They're saying you used to be a better person before. Basically, putting it in layman's terms, you're a shittier person now. People don't like the version that you are now. They think the version that you were before was far better. They related a lot more to that version of you. They found that version of you more interesting. They laughed at that version of you way more, probably. You were a breath of fresh air within that circle of kind of, sycophants and, reply guys and dick suckers that Rogan surrounds himself with. You were the one voice of reason, it felt like. And now they feel like that is no longer the case.
And where it gets paradoxical is that if I started doing that, if I let this like weird harassment campaign from a bunch of people affect me and start...
He calling it harassment. There's none of it is like feedback. None of it is like difference of opinion. None of it is like constructive feedback. It's all just harassment. Everything is grouped under the umbrella of harassment. Jesus Christ, Duncan Trussell.
If I came out and said some horrific things about the people you would love me to say horrific things about, if I came out...
Wrong again. You would probably say horrific things about those people in the past. This version of you won't say it because, of your compromised nature. That's what people are basically saying.
And out of some kind of cowardly fear, like threw one of my best friends in the world under the bus just to appease you guys.
No one's asking you to throw Rogan under the bus. People are just trying to wonder, why does it seem like you align more with Rogan now than you ever did in the past? What happened to the fucking Duncan Trussell that most of us fell in love with? That was the one voice of reason within Joe Rogan's circle. I've said this same sentence again and again and again, but he refuses to address that one comment, which is the one obvious thing that came out of that Duncan Trussell, the Elephant Graveyard segment. That's the one thing that came out of it. To summarize it, why have you changed for the worst? Can you explain? If not, cool. But if you're going to explain, please explain. Don't gaslight us. Don't try and manipulate us. Don't try and dodge it by, labeling everybody as being a fucking hater or a troll or harasser. Please address the question. Or, what came out of it.
At that moment, I would cease being anything that I could look in the mirror and think was okay. At that moment, I would become a monster. I would become the very thing many of you are accusing me of. If you think, knowing my audience, if you think knowing like maybe the people who came here from the Midnight Gospel, that I have some financial gain or benefit from saying things that don't align with a specific worldview, which these days gets categorized as progressive or leftist or whatever the fuck you want to call it. You don't understand.
Powerful bunch.
There.
Big up Asad Aziz.
Damn Duncan. You really sold out for the surveillance bag. Turn to the dark side. This isn't what Charlie Christ Jesus Kirk would have wanted.
Charlie Christ Kirk. Charlie Christ. What? Charlie Christ Jesus Kirk is hilarious. Big up Asad Aziz. He definitely wouldn't have wanted this.
There's no real benefit in articulating the way I feel right now, probably in the sense that just by saying I don't think this man that I've never met is the Antichrist has gotten death threats. People have sent me fucking death threats.
People feel very passionate about it though. I know maybe the death threats aren't great, but can you maybe at least acknowledge how passionately people feel about the Peter Thiel question and his ever growing influence and power that he's asserting over the American people, of worldwide, especially with the companies he's invested in? You should be very worried. The old Duncan Trussell would be very worried about Peter Thiel, would be very suspicious of Peter Thiel, would be very suspicious, would be leaning into the conspiracy, would be actually open to the idea of exploring, the many tentacles that Peter Thiel seems to have. Like, imagine, it's the same thing as Rogan. The old Joe Rogan wouldn't be friends with Peter Thiel. The old Joe Rogan would be freaked out by Peter Thiel and would be questioning things, would be wondering what the fuck's this guy's deal. But now, because they're in the warm bosom of the fucking oligarchs, they can't do that. Again, he doesn't find the irony, in the fact that why don't you seem to disagree with, the same people that you probably would have disagreed with in the past anymore when it comes to Rogan? That's the question I want to know.
An anonymous video goes up online and people have sent me death threats from this. So if you think that in some way I'm grifting for the right, that all of a sudden money's pouring into me from the fucking Heritage Foundation or Palantir or some other fucking massive corporation, you need to do some thanking, because that's not happening. But even worse, what you've accomplished is you've upset a pregnant person. So
no one gives a fuck though, really, innit? Like, respectfully, no one gives a fuck. It really isn't that deep. People are just upset that you seem to have changed for the worse, and they want to know why. That's it. They're making honest observations, like Duncan said, honest observations. Some are blaming the wife, some are blaming Rogan, some are blaming the fact that he's got kids, he has a family now, that he's changed, whatever. But it really is not that deep.
Congratulations. If that's what you were going for, if you wanted to freak out a very pregnant mom who's trying to take care of 3 kids while her husband goes on the fucking road, you did it.
What about everyone else in America who's being freaked out by Palantir, freaked out by Peter Thiel, freaked out by how no one seems to be pushing back or questioning his influence on things, freaked out by the fact that Rogan seems to be his best friend? What about those people? You feel sorry for them?
Mission accomplished, if that was what you were going for. But the other thing is this: if somehow your goal in this was some weird form of intimidation or coercion, if you thought, if enough of you...
Intimidation. Honestly, this version of Duncan Trussell sucks so bad. His fans just merely trying to get through to him, trying to see what the deal is them trying to intimidate or bully him. Come on, Duncan, man. Come on. He's literally crying victim. Come on, man. Come on.
Powerful bunch.
Big up Wingus. Appreciate you.
Another free speech samurai complaining about free speech. Kill surprise.
Exactly. Exactly. Big up Wingus McDingus, man. This is so sad to see. So sad to hear, man. He's changed. He's really, really changed.
Suddenly started blowing up my DMs and my comments.
That's real violence, isn't it? That's real violence. DMs and comments going crazy. That's real violence. That's real scary violence. That.
Ridiculing me, attacking me, or doing all of the things that you've been doing, that was in any way, shape, or form going to affect what I say publicly, you're fucking crazy. Like, that's nuts. That's not going to work at all. That just doesn't work. And also, and this is the last thing I hope I ever have to say about this.
Yeah, right.
For those of you who are posting things along the lines of, oh my God, what's happened to him? He's not one of us anymore. He's changed. For those of you who are like, I'm out of here, man. I can't do this anymore. I don't want you here.
I think I understand that he's pissed off that his wife is getting thrown into this and accused of things, but I think the Duncan Trussell of old would have responded to those questions with a lot more love, with a lot more understanding, with a lot more gentleness. You know, he would have answered that question in the most Duncan Trussell way possible. It would have been really well answered. He would have spoken about growth. He would have spoken about reincarnation. He would have spoken about evolution, self-development. He would have really, really explained as best as he could why it appears that he's kind of changed his position on certain things. But now we just get that. Now we just get good. Yeah, I don't want to be your fans anymore. I don't want to play with you anyway. I'm taking my ball home. I mean, we're getting this like infantile throwing the toys out the pram, you know what I mean, stomping his feet down on the ground type of thing, flailing all over the place attitude. That's a really sad thing about it. He gone now. He gone. He has no understanding, no way to kind of interpret at all how the regular person feels, you know, about certain things. Zero. That's the real sad part about it. Real sad.
If you feel okay, like doing like harassing me, talking shit about my family publicly, speculating on like what my home life is like, what my relationship with my amazing...
You're a public figure, brother. You're a public figure / celebrity. This is gonna happen. Also, you live in America. You got that thing called free speech. As long as they're not trying to physically harm you, like, you just have to suck that shit up. Crying about it online, especially someone like him, he should know way better. He should know crying about stuff online ain't gonna save you. No way it's gonna probably make it worse.
Wife is like, if you like are calling yourself some kind of fan, but then you're also saying his wife is oh my God, I'm so disappointed. His wife is Christian. Oh my God, I'm so fucking, like, he's talking about Jesus. Oh my God, I just can't. If this is you and you're doing this publicly, just know that, like.
But what are you meant to do though? If you do it privately, he calls you an harasser. If you do it publicly, he tells you to go away and leave him alone. What's the option then? Privately, you're harassing him. Publicly, you're being foul. Leave me alone. Wow. Okay. Bumberatted.
Though you're not sending death threats or anything like that, you're part of a bigger momentum, which in the of which a tiny infinitesimally small percentage has already sent me death threats. Now, I don't know who made that fucking video, but I do have a feeling that your intent wasn't to get me killed by a...
Okay, relax, bro. We fucking lax. No one's gonna try and kill. Relax, bro. Relax. Fucking relax. This fucking guy, man. This fucking guy. Is that how much he wants to escape any form of... I don't know. He's willing to escape he's willing to avoid fucking any type of accountability by just making it seem like people are trying to kill him. Like, what? Ay.
Psycho. Pretty sure. If it was, then who are you? And I would invite all of you who have in some way, shape, or form been influenced by this video or by whatever crazy shit you're seeing online to really ask yourself, if the conclusion is that I'm being paid by Palantir, that I am having to like censor myself for Rogan or anybody for that matter. If that's what you've gathered because of the influence of something you've seen online, you should really ask yourself if maybe like you're not diving deep enough into the media that you're consuming. You gotta really do your own research and use your own rational mind to try to make sense of reality as it is, not as someone else tells you it is.
No one needed anyone to tell them. People have been feeling the way they've been feeling about you, Duncan Trussell, way before that Elephant Graveyard video dropped. Way before. People have been feeling the same thing about the comedy scene out there in Austin, way before he posted anything about it. Way before. So why act brand new? Let's continue.
Because, man, one thing I think we all agree on in this world is we've got to de-escalate. Things have got to cool down somehow. And like, if I seem like angry, yeah, it does make me angry. It does make me angry. It does. It makes me angry that I have to comfort my wife.
Of course you do.
Because people have decided to believe that I'm being paid off by oligarchs. It does make me angry. And it is scary. If you wanted to scare me, yeah, I'm not going to lie, it's scary. But the main thing is it's not true. That's the saddest part of it. It's just not true.
Okay.
I don't think the path to the sort of harmonious reality that you're seeking is through intimidation, coercion, aggression, or lying. I just don't. And I don't care what the media is you're consuming. If that media is distorting reality, you got to ask yourself, who does this serve? What does this do? Most importantly, does this get us any closer to a more peaceful world? And if the answer to that is no, then why are you letting that into your head?
Why don't you ask your friend Rogan, who voted for Trump in the first place, who's now doing everything that he said he wouldn't do, and also starting wars and bombing countries? Why don't you ask him? He should have to acknowledge this sort of shit, right? He might get exclusive press briefings and stuff. Why don't you ask that person instead of asking others? Huh? Ask the one right close to you who probably would have more information than anyone would.
Like, why? Like, what's the good of that? Where does it get us? I don't think it gets us anywhere. So, listen, if you're upset, if you think I've become some kind of like any of the number of things that you've called me, I think the very best thing you could do, if you think this media, if my podcast, if this in some way is influenced by technocrats, oligarchs, or nefarious status forces,
go away.
Then I think the best thing for you to do is turn it off. Tune out.
Don't address anything. If you don't like what I have to say, just fuck off. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm perfectly fine. I did nothing wrong. I did everything correct. This fucking guy, man. This fucking guy. So that's the roundup, right? That's the roundup. Duncan Trussell seems to have no idea, understanding why his fans are upset about his change. He doesn't seem willing to accept that he's changed. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong on his side of things, which is what it is. I think enough time has passed now. If you were a fan of Duncan Trussell in the past, this version of his kind of sucks now. So I think the best thing is to do, like he said, actually weird enough, because you're not going to get the answers you want anymore, is just move on. You're not going to get the answers you want. He's clearly demonized everybody. Everybody that criticizes him is an harasser. Everybody that questions him is a troll, doesn't have the best interest in heart. So let's just leave it. I mean, let's just leave it and go to the fucking meat and stuff, I guess. But yeah, big up Duncan Trussell, at least for responding. It took him 2 or 3 times, but he did eventually end up responding to the Elephant Graveyard. And big up the Elephant Graveyard once again. You are doing amazing work. Clearly, as you can see by all the chaos that man is causing the comedy scene. I fucking love it. Big up Comedy Enforcement. Big up Blood Clot Comedy Enforcement.